Let's discuss this now with Chris Hegadorn in Paris. He's the former Secretary of the UN Committee on World Food Security. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Chris. We really appreciate your time. You know, when we see those images like we did in Bassam's story there of starving children, in particular of babies, it's very difficult to think that in 2025, people are literally starving to death, that no help is being given to them. But when it comes to organizations that you used to work for, do they differentiate between starvation and famine? And when do you draw the line to say there is now a famine in Gaza?
Well, thank you for the invitation and thank you for the opportunity to discuss this issue. I don't think anybody watching those images can be unaffected watching children go hungry and the violence that has pervaded. I think as a former diplomat, I would like to see nothing more than a negotiated settlement, at the very least a ceasefire to allow humanitarian agencies and NGOs to distribute food safely. We've been watching this now for over a year, and it's just getting worse. It's time for the diplomats, the leaders in the region, and others to step forward and do the obvious, which is to end this awful conflict. This is a conflict that is not alone in the world. There are massive conflicts going on in Africa and elsewhere, as you know, that go less reported but are no less severe. And I'd like to see countries and the wealthy actually start putting more resources toward food and aid, clean water, to help people live their full lives. So now you asked between starvation and famine, is there a difference? They're usually interchangeable, but the word famine is very carefully defined by something called the Integrated Phase Classification System, or the IPC system. And this is what UN agencies, donors, and others use to measure the severity of a conflict, whether it's level 1, which is the least problematic, all the way up to level 5, which is famine. And famine is defined in I won't go into the very specific numbers, but it means people are dying in large numbers. And we've seen, as you and your previous guest pointed out, the numbers are large. 111, you mentioned, have died just in the last few days. But the malnourishment, this is a lifelong problem, and this is what should be addressed now.
And how can it be addressed now if that aid that's on the borders of Gaza is simply just not being allowed in, and even the aid that is coming in isn't able to be distributed because there's a shortage of fuel, for example. Organizations like UNRWA have been banned. Aid workers themselves are literally starving.
Yes, and you and I are reading this on a moment-to-moment basis. I am not in Gaza, so I cannot tell you with my own eyes, but I have been on those borders many times when I was a diplomat in Egypt, looking at how we could contribute to a peaceful two-state solution. So, yeah, there is food. I am reading, as you have, that there are many trucks in Gaza, but that distribution is a major challenge because of the security or lack thereof for aid workers. There are communication problems between the IDF, of course, the problem is a political problem. All UN officials there are trying to get assurances that they can deliver food in a safe and consistent way, but there is nothing safe and consistent going on in Gaza. So it is, as I read this morning, there are meetings going on by the minute. The UN Security or Secretary General is addressing this conflict very publicly. Letters are being sent by many country leaders, and attention is being very strongly directed at getting the food that's there distributed and more food available. But we've also read that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, as Mr. Zadori just spoke to earlier, has been a privatized effort to essentially replace UN role in the Gaza Strip. That is a policy that's been pursued by Israel, by the U.S., and that's causing great problems because they can't control the security. They don't have the experience. Only the UN has proven itself capable of doing what's necessary, but they have to be given the space, the time, and the resources to do their jobs properly. These are fantastically capable and dedicated people.
Absolutely. And Chris, I'm also just wondering, we aren't any closer to a ceasefire. I wish that we could say that we were. It does then mean that starvation will continue, famine will grow. How is that going to affect generations of young Palestinians? Because it's not just something they have to deal with now. This is developmental, it's physiological, it's emotional. It's going to affect them for years.
Yeah, you've taken some of the words right out of my mouth. This is a problem that will persist for generations. When you have situations of malnourishment, this level of severe malnutrition, 17,000 children, your previous guest highlighted, this is a lifelong problem, measured in terms like stunting and wasting. Right? Typically, a pregnant woman who is breastfeeding or children up to the age of 5, this is the most critical and important part of their developmental lives for nourishment. When they do not receive either enough calories or the micronutrients for healthy brain development, yes, this becomes lifelong problems that usually result in weaker health and immune systems later in life and shorter lives. So, yeah, this is tragic on any number of levels. Certainly, babies and children under the age of 5 don't deserve this type of outcome. And so the international community, everybody involved in this conflict, has to double their efforts to get food, to get those micronutrients, clean water, medicines, right? You see a lot of people dying of illnesses. Those illnesses are almost certainly related to poor nutrition. We know that as a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. So much more action needs to be taken. Chris Hegadorn, really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Thank you so much.